And we're live. Welcome to Office Hours with Arrow, a LinkedIn Live event hosted by Arrow leaders who care about what senior living looks like. I'm your host and producer, Rachel Sheehan, and today I'm so excited to talk about traditions and planning traditions and all the behind scene work on our traditions program with Shannon and Heather. So both of you have been here with me before, but I would love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit. Tell me about your little arrow wear you're wearing, because Shannon, yours is green, which is not norm for the arrow wear, so I need to know why.
No, we barely believe in colors in arrow wear. So this is an anomaly created specifically for the holidays. This is our first, oh my God, I'm going to stand up, holiday shirt that we did. It's Unleash, you may now unleash the cheer. It is an Easter egg from our very first Christmas video, or second one technically, that we ever did as Arrow. It features a lovely gentleman named Andy. Also, I think I was supposed to introduce myself, but I got sidetracked by my shirt, or you got me sidetracked by my shirt.
I did.
But I'm Shannon Novak. I'm the Senior Managing Director of Marketing. I have indeed been here once or twice previously. And our team as a collective, we kind of focus on supporting each of the communities in building a great place to live and work. And then we also support and shouting it out to the world that you are a great place to live and work. So we do a lot of we're behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. We're in all the scenes.
I love it. I love it. And Heather, tell everyone who you are and your role.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Maxon, and I am the new resident experience coordinator as of 3 weeks ago. So I'm happy to join Shannon and Rachel's team, and I am sporting the Be Kind sweatshirt that we got for Christmas last year.
I love it. And you are fresh out the community, so you will bring great perspective to this traditions chat. So I'm excited.
Now, Rachel, before we keep going, can we talk a little bit about the shirt that you are wearing?
I have to. I'm too excited. Okay, so I used to be in the community where Gail, who's on my shirt, I guess I'll stand up too. Marion Bright, he was the star of our video 2 years ago, and he is basically Mr. Christmas. So this is our shirt this year. If you would like to purchase mine or Shannon's, it is on the website. We can link later, but yeah, I'm just excited because I'm like, oh, I actually know this guy. So it's just fun, but that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I just wanted to bring it up. So here we are.
An important piece. And it is it is part of what we're talking about today.
It is a tradition of Arrow to have these shirts, the Christmas shirts. We have little smaller traditional things we do like that, but then what we're talking about today is more the event traditions that we do in all of our communities. So Shannon, do you want to kind of give us a little, like, what makes a tradition and why do we do them?
Oh gosh. Okay. I will try to answer this succinctly. That's not my specialty. So we'll see how it goes. But so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back a little farther. We're going to do this whole thing. So traditions, which if you guys have been with us before, we have had a whole traditions conversation where we've gone in depth on this, but just a little recap. So traditions started with the idea, kind of two ideas. We wanted to insert just like little fun things to look forward to that were interesting and a little bit out of the box. So we started. And then we really started exploring from there, what are traditions that are celebrated by other cultures or so that we can kind of expand, because I think there's an image of senior living as a very specific way with very specific things, but we really do include so many people from so many walks of life with so many traditions of their own. And so as part of building true communities that are inclusive of and welcoming to everybody, we wanted to start exploring what other traditions were out there that we may not have been familiar with ourselves and how we could represent them in our communities and start building our own traditions program, where it's you have your traditions with your family, you have your traditions with your friends, you have your personal traditions, and then you have your traditions within your community that you're all building together. So we have created a pretty expansive list that we'll go into a little bit more. Rachel is holding up our brand new calendar. She printed it in too tiny of a size, but
it's what my printer could handle, but it would print normally bigger professionally, but we'll get to this.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. But essentially, oh gosh, how deep should I go? Like do we want to get into the council yet? We have an entire traditions council that we've built, and we take time and we look at national calendars and like different diverse calendars, just trying to seek things of like what is interesting, what are the big traditions celebrated by various cultures. And that's kind of where we started. And then we've expanded that and built in multiple layers to celebrate normal, like things like 4th of July, or make sure, we're always going to celebrate Easter, but we've put it in, and celebrating our employees. And there's just, oh my God, guys, there's so many things to celebrate and so many traditions to build.
Yeah. And I think giving some examples might help too for those who are watching along with us, but maybe what's one of your favorite traditions, or I don't know, just something you look forward to us celebrating every year?
So many things. Women's History Month is one of my favorites, but it's not, well, you know what? Women's History Month is one of my favorites. And I love it because we pivot it to celebrate the women of our memory care neighborhoods, so that we are, even if you can't tell your own story, your story deserves to be told, and we will help you tell your story. And I just love doing that. And the stories are all like, guys, we have some amazing people living in our communities. And, with some of our residents, we get to hear the stories, and some of our residents, they're not telling them anymore. And so when we uncover this, it's just like, he was an actual rocket scientist, or she was a full-on model, or a Broadway singer, or just like, there's so many great people, and you don't always get to hear their stories this the way that we get to hear them. But
I love that. Heather, do you have one in mind? Or a couple?
I do have two. I love Don't Step on a Bee Day, because I just think that it's a lot of fun. I mean, bees are obviously very important to everything that we have. We wouldn't survive without bees. And I don't think a lot of people know that. So bringing that education piece, I love that we, get to have local beekeepers come into our communities. And I think that's just a good connection to our local beekeepers, and getting them more recognition of like, hey, they're saving all of our lives and all of our food. But we like to put a special spin on it, and, dress up as bees and have honey snacks and everything in black and yellow. And so that's one of my favorite. And then my other one, I think it became one of my favorites last year, was Autism Awareness Month. And specifically because we had a special ed teacher that came in and came to talk to us about autism awareness. And I literally saw some of my residents, like, light bulb just come on. And so when she was done talking, I had a resident say, well, I had no idea, but I think that's why my grandson does X, Y, and Z. Or this makes a lot more sense when at family gatherings, this is what happens. So just them being able to see, put into perspective of how other people live differently, and how their lives are shaped differently than theirs. And it could be some of their family members. So I think that was one of my favorites, of just really an eye-opening experience for all of us.
Yeah, I love that. For me, I love Mom and Pop Small Business Day. I think that's one of my favorites, to see all those posts, because we don't always, we're really big communities ordering from big companies usually for our things. And so it's nice to take a day to just have every service area, highlight a small business and get something for our residents, or just do something nice for a small business to support. So,
and with that, Rachel, sorry, I feel like I may have cut you off. With that, Rachel, and I have so many things to add to Heather's, but with what you're saying, part of being a community is embracing your entire community. Like, we are, there are so many places, like, you're going to support the local mom and pop shop, whatever they may be or sell, but that is a business owner that knows the community they live in too, and relies on them. That is a business owner that has family members. Like, these are, it's not only building a community and getting out there, it's also building referral sources. So it serves both directions to have that. And that is also part of what our traditions are, is it's, how are we helping our residents grow, and how are we helping to create like make our space within the broader community and embrace it too, because we aren't an island. We can't exist on an island.
Oh.
And I think with some of what Heather said, I believe that there's, again, a perception that when you get to a certain age, you don't want to learn anymore and you're fine. And we have found repeatedly that is absolutely not true. When we do our resident surveys every year, one of the things that pops up is they want education events, and it comes up in, there are resident councils for calendar planning, and Heather can talk more about that than I can, but it comes up, our residents, they want to learn about things, they want educational events, and these traditions provide us an opportunity to look at different types of education, because I feel like there are only so many that just immediately pop in your brain of like, we can educate on this. And so this opens a whole broader world of, there are so many more things we can educate on that we might not have thought of. And then with Don't Step on a Bee and some of our others, you're not only educating, but it's fun. It's fun education. You're learning about it while eating, dishes that are made with honey and wearing costumes. And there are so many ways to learn and have a good time doing it too.
Yeah. And I did want to say, for anybody watching, if you want to drop your favorite tradition in the chat, if you're with Arrow, or just favorite family tradition you do or something like that, feel free. But we did have a question, and I love this idea. I'm going to be excited about this, Shannon. But are there residents on Traditions Council? So I think that we could dive into our Traditions Council, how that works a little bit, but also I think our resident feedback portion is important. And something we haven't totally explored yet, specific to traditions. So I didn't know if you want to talk about this at all either.
I can start. Heather's going to have a little bit more to build on it. So I'll do a little broad sweep and then Heather take over for me. So one, Charlie, you're giving away some trade secrets, because I think ultimately our goal is to directly have residents that are part of the council, but we're not there yet. Slow down. But that is our goal, because we do want them to weigh in on the front end. But as it is now, is our council is made up of a regional team with input from community team members. And then we also are always, our residents are never afraid to provide us with feedback, as Heather can speak to. And so they provide that as well to help us tweak and improve and find new directions. So Heather, take over and talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we have event planning committee meetings monthly in every neighborhood. And they don't just wait for those meetings to give their feedback. I always got little notes under the door, or I got an email, or they always find ways to communicate, whether they are happy or not. But in the events planning committee meeting, I a couple of times had several ladies that said, we're not big into the bingo party scene. We would like more of the education and to learn in small groups and kind of the quieter events. And so I think that's where the traditions really come into play as well, to help with those education pieces of things that they have specifically requested that they are interested in, as well as some things that they may not have even known that they were interested in learning about. And last October, for White Cane Awareness Month, we had Missouri Assistive Technologies come and do a presentation, and he brought every gadget in the whole wide world that can help them still live independently at home in the community and assisted living, for them to be independent and still do stuff on their own, to help put on their shoes, visual impairment, bringing the blind stick. There was things to help you with the phone if you can't see the buttons on the phone, and how to still operate a CD player if you can't see the buttons. Just all kinds of technology that I didn't even know existed. So one of those ladies after that said, "This is the education I'm talking about. Like, this is what we need to get out here and learn." And that all stemmed from an activities meeting that, one of the residents said, "I have this guy who I think would come talk during White Cane Awareness." So.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think that's one of those things, like, you may have not thought, I mean, you probably would think of things like that, but you may have not thought to add it in unless we had this tradition kind of across our whole community based. So
Having the connections,
Yeah.
one resident saying, hey, I really want to learn about this. And another one saying, oh, I have a guy at this technology place. Like, let me give him a call and him and Heather will get it on the book. So having that communication in those meetings is really important.
I love that. Very cool. Yeah. So I think too, that goes back to something Heather and I have been talking about, bringing back our post-action review surveys. And I think through our app with the residents, we could even, broaden that to have them fill out the survey that way if they would like. So I love that idea from Charlie. Maybe up our sleeve, but as Shannon said, we're not quite ready for that yet.
But yes, we do always embrace resident feedback because we want to help our residents. We want to help ourselves grow. We want to help our team members grow. We want to help our residents grow. But we also acknowledge that sometimes you've got to grow in baby steps. And so how do we take the baby steps to get everybody on board with us versus pushing the rock uphill forever? And a key part of that is resident feedback and feedback from the teams on how to best approach it and how to take that first step on some of these. And then really cool things come from them.
Yes. And so I want to dive a little bit into the logistics, back to my calendar, which got to give Sarah big shout out, making beautiful for us. It's hard for you all to see, but it's all on here. The things we celebrate. I mean, there are so many other things. Our resident services directors are amazing. They celebrate things every day. So many things every day. These are just some standards that we put in place and put on a calendar so that it's celebrated in every single community of ours. So with that, we take these monthly ones and turn them into something called the 5 W's. So, or Shannon, do you have anything first before I go on about this calendar you want to add?
Nothing specific about that calendar, just something you did mention was that this calendar is our specific traditions. And I think the question comes up sometimes of like, well, I want to do this. We'll do that. Like the traditions calendar is not meant to limit. It's supposed to set a standard of things we want to see, but it is never meant to limit what our communities are doing or what they're celebrating, because we may not put Gorgeous Grandma Day on there or National Ice Cream Day, but those are both awesome things you should absolutely have fun with. And there are so many more, but this is just kind of the base standard of things we want to see. And then we always want our teams to think and look at the things that are fun and fit their communities and expand upon it. So,
yeah. And so what we do with these, each individual, is we create what is called the 5 W's, which is basically the who, what, where, when, why, and we add the how as well. But it's kind of just a document for each of these that's kind of a guide for our teams to be able to carry these out in a, fun, but also we want to be correct in how we celebrate our traditions. Sometimes it's things we don't know much about, so we need to educate, all that kind of stuff. So that's how we lay it out. And that's kind of what the traditions committee does, is working through those questions of how do we want to celebrate this in our communities? And do we need to change anything from how we celebrated last year based on the feedback or anything like that? Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to add about the 5 W's?
It's kind of the same thing. 5 W's aren't meant to, they're not a limiting factor. They're kind of just giving people guidelines so they know essentially where their ditches are. You just stay kind of between these things and we should be good. But yeah, they're just meant to be a guideline so someone has something to reference, because there are so many things that we are all learning together and we can't keep it all in our brains all of the time. So the 5 W's give you something to reference.
And it's also good on a community level for the 5 W's, just to keep everybody on the same track as department head and as a whole team, to just know who, what, when, and where, and why, and when they're supposed to be doing it, and who's supposed to be executing, and how we can work together as a team. So I think on the community level, 5 W's are extremely important to keep everybody on the same track.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because the who is where we list out like who is responsible for this, because it's not always our resident services team. Sometimes it's, the wellness director is leading the fall prevention tradition, because that makes sense, so things like that for sure. And then we also try to put on there any extra resources we have. So Shannon, talk about when we are adding a new tradition. What is kind of our baseline? Like, what do we do the first year?
Yes, absolutely. First, I want to add one more thing to Heather, because she makes a great point. Is the other part of it is, we are talking about this with every single department. We go over what it is, but as human beings, we all hear things exactly the way we hear them. And sometimes that doesn't always match what someone else heard. And so this gives no, it's this, it's on the paper, it's like this. And so that also helps with that. Well, I heard it this way. No. Or actually, you're right. You did hear it that way. I'm the one that heard it wrong. So that's another benefit of having that all spelled out. And then it helps you year to year to know, okay, this is how we did it. This is what we did. This is how it looked. So adding a new tradition is a fun it's a fun adventure. Multiple layers to it. So when we're coming up with them on the front end, we kind of use the council to come together and we look at the month and we're like, okay, what is out there in this month? What happens in this month that we can choose from? And then we look at what is already in existence to see, is there something already similar to this? Do we have anything that is from this culture or this country, or are we missing complete? Do we have anything that is celebrated in, I don't know, Chinese culture? Well, let's get that in there because that's really interesting. And so we're looking at what exists and kind of where our gaps are so that we're celebrating something from everyone. And then once we've done that, we like to introduce kind of our first year, we do what we call a D&I, or diversity and inclusion conversation, where we're having an expert who knows all about what we're celebrating sit down with a resident and do a recorded conversation so that we can all learn directly from an expert exactly what it is we're talking about. Because I cannot say it enough, we are all learning about this as we go, and we're all improving, and we're all looking for feedback and ways to get better. And then the next year, after we have a little bit more familiarity, usually we'll then go to a story corner where we'll find a kid's book that pertains to whatever the tradition is. Heather can talk all about school partnerships and book selection. I'll let her have that in a second. And so we'll do a story corner book so that we can bring what we've learned and kind of help bridge that with our school partnerships so that kids are learning about it too, in a way that is fun and appropriate for their age groups. So, and then from there is where we really start diving into, okay, we've set the groundwork, we've educated, what does this look like for us as a true ongoing year-to-year tradition?
Yeah. And I love that because I think that's kind of like for the B-Day, for example, like we did, we've done the story corner, we had the D&I first, then the story corner, and now it's this culinary celebration. They do a B-dish, and we have an outside educator come in and do a presentation or some kind of conservation event. So I think that's kind of just an example for those listening to kind of follow along. But yeah, the story corner, we'll get into that another time because that's a whole LinkedIn Live topic coming. But yeah, I just love it. I think this helps set standards, but also we love to see the individual creativity and the different ways our team celebrate. So it's a lot of fun and a lot of things I would not have known what Diwali was if I didn't watch the video, of our residents explaining it. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And some of those things that we're seeing have become some of my favorite things. Like there's sillier ones. Like right now today's Yule Lads Day. We're celebrating Yule Lads, which is a tradition I never knew about. And it's Icelandic, mischievous, it's fun. And I would have never known. And it is one of my favorite things because it is just, there's history that's really interesting, but it's also it's a really fun thing to do. But then on the other side, I'd heard of Dia de los Muertos, but I had no idea what it really was and what it meant. And I absolutely adore that tradition because it is just like in senior living, there's so much loss. We're losing people that we love all of the time. And this is a tradition that lets us just accept that, embrace that this is our reality, and celebrate all of those people that we've loved and lost, whether it's at work, in our personal lives, and tell their stories and remember them in a nice, it can be tearful, but it doesn't have to be. Right. We're celebrating them and who they were and their favorite things and keeping their memories going within our community since they were part of it.
Yeah.
So there's just so many things to learn, and there's so many cool ways to do it, and it's really great. I can't remember where I started with that. I got really excited about Dia de los Muertos, and I got myself all off track.
Just get Shannon in a room about traditions. We could talk for hours, but we only have a few minutes. So we talked about how the 5 W's changed a little bit, but does this calendar change? Does this ever change, Shannon?
Well, one, it changes year to year as we add things. Two, it changes year to year as traditions move. Because some things don't always happen on the same days, and that's a fun adventure that we embrace as well. But in terms of the general, once it's set, it's pretty well set, and all it's really going to do is get bigger.
Right.
Eventually, that piece of paper isn't going to work for Rachel anymore.
It's going to have to go to tabloid poster size.
Yeah, you have to ship me one. So what's coming in 2025 then? Can we tell our viewers?
Yes, but I think Heather should. Guys, I've talked so much. Heather, tell us about 2025.
Yes, because I definitely have that piece of paper that Rachel printed off right in front of me. Thank you, Shannon. So 2025, we are adding a lot of traditions that have to do with employee focus and focusing on just our really great team. So we'll be celebrating all of our different areas and departments and doing, Nurses Week and Memory Care Week and National Activities Professionals Week and Maintenance Day and all the things. So we are focusing on all of our super cool employees in 2025.
Heather, you didn't even need the piece of paper. You had it. You just didn't believe
it. You know it. And that's one of the things about traditions that is so cool is it's not always something new to our communities. Like these are things they were already celebrating. We just put it on paper and set that standard again, but also encourage flexibility and creativity and all that. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it comes along.
One thing, guys, we're almost out of time, but one thing I want to add is that sometimes our traditions do come from the communities themselves celebrating something and then us seeing it and going, oh, that was really cool. We should do that everywhere. And so fun fact that I think we talked about on a different LinkedIn Live, but like we do a big 12 days celebration for the 12 days of Christmas. Well, that came from Rachel. During COVID, she was looking for a way to do something fun in the community, and she started doing these carts for the 12 days. And we're like, she's on to something.
Or we had Lois, a resident, tell us, I want us to celebrate winter solstice. And so now that's in our cheer calendar. And so it's things like that that just sometimes come up naturally that make the best traditions.
Yes.
So, okay, if last piece of advice you would give if somebody wants to start this in their communities, what piece of advice would you give them?
Heather, you want to go first?
Find them a Rachel and a Shannon. That's the advice I would give is get yourself a culture club and find you a Rachel and a Shannon.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You were too kind.
Well, I think that, well, it doesn't give Rachel too much credit. It definitely gives me too much credit. Rachel's really our glue, but I mean, you've got to, it's like starting anything else. You've got to persist. You've got to be open to feedback. You've got to ask questions. You've got to be open to being wrong. And just accepting that we're all learning, we're all figuring it out. Things can change. We can try it and we can be like, nope, we're going to do this differently. And so, it's always just accepting what is and looking for where to go next and how to take the next right step. So,
yeah. And also for anybody watching, we always will share our resources with you as far as what we celebrate. If you would like to see this, just message me or comment, but know that this doesn't happen overnight. You don't have to go this big overnight. Start with one new tradition in 2025 if you want, or in January. So
just like holiday cheer. First year started out as 25 days, and then we went to 46.
Yeah,
so it can start out small and then grow.
Yes, I love that. So, and actually, I did want to say too, part of one of our traditions that's Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up. That is actually going to be the focus of our next LinkedIn Live next week on acts of service, which also ties into our traditions. Every month, pretty much, we have a tradition that relates back to that acts of service tradition we do all year. So if you'd like to learn more about that, come next week, same time, same place, different guests, but it's going to be great. Heather, Shannon, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited for 2025.
Thanks. We are too.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.